So, what do you do when you have a little guy Max and it's a little too close to the ground? Well, come join us on our adventure.
Hi, I'm JT.
And I'm DT, and these are our adventures
Join us as we travel
as we help our community
and just enjoy life.
So, we've just gotten back from a week-long trip around 5 states in one day. No, that's kind of what we did in one day. But we went all over the place for about a week. And then on the way back, we had a couple of close calls, we'll say. And the close calls were down here. As you can see, little guy Max, just regular edition, is a little bit close to the ground. And it's a little over 7 inches to the very bottom of the black tank valve here. And so we got into a couple of places where that was a little bit close. And also I've read in a couple of posts that people have actually knocked off their lower fill or lower empty valve there on the back of the fresh water tank. And so it was time to make a change. Well, what's that change? Well, here's that change. We bought some lifts from eTrailer. Make sure the first thing you do is check which axle you actually have. There's different kinds. We have a Lippert axle, and there are 2 types of them. One has a square, which is parallel to the ground, and the other is a diamond shape, where the point of the diamond is pointing down. Ours happens to be a square one, so make sure that you get the proper lift kit if this is what you're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen those lug nuts. They've been torqued to the recommended specification, but before I loosen anything, I'm going to make sure that the wheels are chalked on both sides so that it doesn't roll. So after I've checked, I'm going to come back and loosen those lug nuts. So I have loosened the lug nuts, just a turn or two, not a whole bunch. We're not trying to take them off right now. I have my heavy-duty floor jack. Make sure that you use the tools that are appropriate for the job, and also a couple of jack stands. Now we're going to lift it on the frame. We're not going to lift it at the axle. You don't want to lift it at the axle because that's a very good, easy way to bend the axle. So I have it lifted using the frame. Also, I've positioned my jack stands for safety so that when I take off the tire, I'll have something to support it. Pretty easy to take off the tire at this point. Just spin out the lug nuts and take off the tire. Here it is with the wheel removed. This would also be a great time to service those bearings. Now, underneath this little cap, depending on your axle, may be a grease zerk where you can actually squirt some new grease in there. Now, if you've been taking your trailer around and using it a lot, this would also be a great time to check the brakes. So you would have to remove this. There's a cotter pin to pull and a nut that will spin off. You can take that and take off the whole drum for the brake, and you can check your brake pads. Now, I'm not going to do that today because guess what I did about 2 weeks ago. But here's that square axle. So I now have it sitting on the jack stands and the frame. There are 2 bolts and nuts holding this together, and I'm going to remove those now. They're 15/16 in size. So I've removed one of the nuts. You'll notice that I have the floor jack underneath here. That's so I can control how slowly the axle lowers. And I haven't removed that other bolt until I'm absolutely sure I'm ready to do it. So now I've lowered it, and I'll install the new part, the lift. The new kit includes nuts, bolts, washers, all that. And you'll notice on this nut that it has some dents in there. I don't know if you can quite see it, but those little shiny spots there, that's the lock nut. And so we want to install that with the lock nut out. So I've installed it. Notice that the empty spot, the open spot points out. I've tightened it as much as I can. Now I'm using an impact wrench, and that's probably the best tool for the job to get these nuts to go down all the way. So when we started, sorry about that. It's getting dark out here, so I have to have my headlamp on. So when we started, we were at 7 inches, and now a little over 11 and a half, maybe to the lowest point. So that's great. We've accomplished the mission of raising this up. We've gotten the things off the ground. Now, one thing is of course, you have to re-level everything. And so, because it's so high up off the ground, now because of where we're at, we have to use chocks. Just a little advice, make sure that you hand tighten your lug nuts. Don't use your impact wrench. Make sure that you do use your torque wrench to finish that job. As you can tell, it's still a little bit dirty. We need a little dirty. We need to get a little soap and some water out here. Scrub this down, and it'll be ready for our next trip. So DT, what do you think of the new mod to the clubhouse?
It looks a lot higher than 3 inches. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that it's it looks like it's about 3.5 inches probably. I think that's the specifications on the kit. The guys at eTrailer, by the way, we purchased this. We're not sponsored by anybody. We're great. It was out of stock. George over there was doing a great job informing us when it was there. He kept on giving us offers of, hey, we've got this one in stock we can ship right now, but we really wanted to stay with this one, and so I'm really happy with it so far. We'll see how it handles. It is a lot higher, and so I think it's going to be
No more worrying about the rocks underneath when we go by the lake.
Yeah, but now when you wake up and have to go outside and it's dark,
It's a big step. Look at that step. That's amazing.
yeah, we're gonna have to do something about that. So we had it took about maybe 2 hours, I think. Make sure you have the right tools for the job. If you're not ready to do it yourself, make sure you find somebody that can do it for you. Make sure that it stays aligned, all that kind of stuff. With that, thank you for joining me on our adventure. And as always, if you liked our information, like, subscribe. Also, if you really don't like it,
2 thumbs down.
2 thumbs down.